Uh, Good morning, everyone, and good evening and good afternoon for a lot of people who are joining from a different part of the world. The show must go on. We are live on International Weekly meeting every Saturday in association with CMAAO. We have representative from various medical associations over here. And we will start with a presentation from Dr. Monica Vasudev, who has joined us from US, and followed by question answers. And we will also talk about respective country scenario right now. So we have already seen that the COVID is acting very very different in different countries, in a different climate and a different weather conditions. So this is something which we want to know from various countries, and we will take home a message. Before Dr. Monica can start the presentation, I would request Dr. Chong to chair the meeting. He's also the chairman for the CMAAO. And over to you, Dr. Monica.
Thank you, Saurabh, so much. It's a very personal time to be coming this week. And it's the first week that we will be at this meeting in remembrance of Dr. K.K. Agarwal. Today, I'd like to talk about the COVID variants, because I think this is a topic we should just be aware of for terminology. Because this is what's the largest concern in terms of the morbidity and mortality that is occurring worldwide. So I'll start sharing my screen. So today's topic is on COVID variants. So I'd like to start off by reviewing the biology of viruses. Viruses initially attach to a cell. The cell engulfs the virus. The viral genetic material are released in the cell and begin replication using cellular mechanisms. And the cell replicates the viral proteins, which begin to form new viral particles. And new viral particles are released from the cell while the cell continues to replicate the virus within. So let's talk about that with respect to the SARS-CoV-2 virus, the virus that's implicated in the COVID-19 disease. So this is a specific virus with its specific genetic code. The genome of this virus is made of 30,000 letters of RNA. The RNA produce four main structural proteins. You have the spike protein, which is the one that you hear about most often, and that's being represented by these dumbbell type shapes. You have the envelope, which is your E protein, the M, which is your membrane protein, and you have your nucleocapsid or your N protein. The N protein holds the RNA genome, while the S, E, and M proteins create the viral envelope. The spike protein is used by the virus to attach to human cells and gain entry. And you can see here, this ring represents the amount of genetic material that is being that is in the virus that stores and encodes for the different proteins. And the majority of the genetic material are for these for structural proteins that I referenced earlier, where the spike protein here is represented in the red, sorry. So let's talk about variants. And to talk about variants, I'd like to use this video, and this video doesn't have any sound, so I'll walk you through it. So imagine a bike lock. Each wheel has four options. You have adenosine, cytosine, guanine, and uracil. Now imagine that this lock has 30,000 wheels, and that's the entire genome sequence of our virus. Every time the virus spreads, it's copying the sequence. But every now and then, as it copies, the wheels in the sequence can slip. So here you can see the uracil being replaced with adenosine. And most of the time, these tiny variations, it doesn't alter how the virus works. One small variation lets the virus still work the same way. However, sometimes the variations can make combos that don't work. It makes the virus weaker, and then these strains die out. And sometimes the variations can make the virus a tiny bit stronger, better at transmitting, more resistant, and these strains can thrive. The good news is that the current COVID-19 vaccines are designed so that in most cases they will work against the new variants. And researchers are working on ways to alter the composition of the vaccines to cover these possible new variants.
Dr. Monica, the video is
Yeah.
not visible in case you're showing a video.
Oh, I did. It didn't show the video?
We can just see the variant screen. Probably it is running on the background.
You'll have to stop sharing this PPT and you'll have to start sharing the video separately because
Yeah, because-
you're sharing this.
Yeah. I'll do it again. And okay, here we go. I hope this is visible now. Can you see my screen now?
We can
that's
see
better.
the screen and you might have to restart it.
Okay, and I will restart it for you. Okay.
Thank you.
So what causes a virus to change? So inside a virus, there's molecules called nucleotides, which form different combinations: adenosine, cytosine, guanine, and uracil. So imagine a bike lock that each has 4 options, and these are the 4 nucleotides. Now imagine the lock has 30,000 wheels and then the entire genome sequence of the virus. So every time the virus spreads, it's copying the sequence, and it's supposed to be exactly the same. But every now and then, as it copies, the wheels in the sequence can slip. So here you see the uracil going to the adenine. So most of the time, these tiny variations don't alter the virus, how the virus works. And here you see that it works exactly the same. But sometimes combinations that don't work make the virus a little weaker, and these strains tend to die out. And sometimes the variations can make the virus a tiny bit stronger, transmitting it, making it more resistant to the immune system, and these strains can thrive. The good news is that current COVID-19 vaccines are designed so that in most cases, they will work against new variants. Okay. So I'd like to go back to my presentation. So we talked about how these viruses are mutating. They can mutate at a much higher rate than other organisms like humans. And when they mutate quickly, and when they replicate quickly, they can mutate as a result of this quick replication. And these mutants are different genetically from the original virus. And again, it's talking about the different scenarios where there may not be any important differences, that the mutations make the virus less able to replicate, or they may have a selective advantage where it may in fact more readily replicate or leave a body more easily. And this is what we're concerned about, the variants that are coming through and causing these surges in different geographic areas. So what is a mutation? A mutation refers to changes in the genetic composition that occurs naturally over time. Some mutations can change the ability to cause infection and disease. And so what's a variant? So a variant is when the viruses of the same class develops different sequences due to a mutation. So the mutation causes a variant, where there's just a change in the RNA alone. So there are thousands of variants of SARS-CoV-2 that may just differ by one mutation. And most of these variants are not more dangerous. They may weaken or strengthen the virus. Then what's a strain? A strain is when the variant actually has features that's different than the original virus. So that's like the phenotype, such as its differences in its ability to spread or cause disease. So therefore, all strains are variants, but not all variants are strains. A strain happens is when the actual behavior of the virus changes. What's a lineage? A lineage is a branch of a viral classification. Lineage A1 was responsible for the Washington State breakout, while the current circulation of lineage is called Lineage B. You might have heard the word clade, and that refers to the various ways a viral species relates to each other and to track how a virus bounces around different geographical regions. So now how does this apply in terms of the mutations to the spike protein? So as you can see here, the spike protein is what is recognized by the ACE2 receptor that is found in many human cells. If there's a mutation in the genetic material that codes for the spike protein, it'll change how this virus behaves. And each variant mutation is named with letters and numbers, and so that represents the different substitutions and the position along the sequence. So D614G, which was the earliest mutation, is present in more than 98% of the viral isolates of the world, and N501Y, which the virus binds more tightly to human cells, binding to the ACE2 receptor. So these are other terms that are related to variants, and this is coming from the CDC website. So what is a variant of interest? A variant of interest is a specific genetic marker that's been associated with changes to receptor binding. So that's that receptor binding to the ACE2 receptor that causes reduced neutralization by antibodies generated by either being infected before vaccination, or there's reduced efficacy of treatments, there's potential diagnostic impact, so potential, or predicted increase in transmissibility or disease severity. So you're beginning to develop an interest in a particular mutation because it can be associated with a loss of neutralizing antibodies, et cetera. Now, this is a term that you're probably hearing more often, and that's variants of concern. So this is when you actually have evidence of increase in transmissibility, more severe disease, increase in hospitalizations or death, or significant reduction in neutralization by antibodies generating during a prior infection or vaccination, reduced effectiveness of treatments of vaccines, and diagnostic detection failures. And this is where the concern is today for us in terms of the strains that we're talking about. This is the next level of concern, and that's a variant of high consequence. This is where there is clear evidence that prevention measures or medical countermeasures have significantly reduced effectiveness relative to previously circulating variants. And none of these are identified right now, but this is nomenclature. So what do we know about variants of concern, or VOCs? It has evidence of impact on how we diagnose, treat, or provide our efficacy of vaccines. It can interfere with diagnostic test targets. It can decrease the susceptibility to a class of therapies. It decreases neutralization by antibodies, either by prior infection or through immunization, or there's reduced vaccine-induced protection for severe disease. They have evidence of increased transmissibility and evidence of increased disease severity. And this is what we're seeing when we're looking at the numbers of surges. So I want to just walk through a few of the variants that we are talking about. And so the UK variant was probably the first one that I think was really getting traction in terms of recognition. This was first identified in September of 2020. This is known as a B1.1.7. It was estimated that half the people who were infected between October and December last year had this variant. This variant has spread to other countries. And what you can see here is a map of the spread of the variants as of the 25th of March. So we're in a totally different situation today, but this is a graphic that I could show you, at least showing where we were at the end of March. Several of these mutations encode the spike protein, and it could potentially alter the efficacy of the vaccines. But currently what we know is that the vaccines from the Pfizer Bioentec, the Moderna, the Johnson & Johnson, and AstraZeneca so far have all appeared to protect against this particular variant of concern. The other variant of concern is the South Africa variant. Again, this is a map from March of 2021. This is known as the B1.351. This was recognized in October of 2020. It has similar mutations as to the UK variant. And since mid-November, a significant percentage of people in South Africa who were diagnosed in COVID-19 had this particular variant. It has spread to other countries, including the United States, and I believe now that this is the dominant variant of concern that is in Malaysia. The Brazilian variant, this was recognized from travelers who had gone from Brazil to Japan, and that was during screening. It's also known as P1. There was a cluster of cases in Brazil, in the Amazon city of Manaus. It has two key mutations that make the strain more transmissible, and it can reinfect COVID survivors. it can make vaccines less effective. The Indian variant, which is of great concern, was first detected on October 5th of 2020, and it was first found in Maharashtra. It has spread to multiple countries. It's spreading rapidly. It's felt to be very contagious. It has been given the term as the double variant as well. It's spreading quickly, and it could potentially displace the variant that's in Europe. There's potentially a reduction in neutralization by some monoclonal antibody treatments, and there's a decreased neutralization by post-vaccination sera. And this is data from April 21st, and I believe that this data is going to look very different as if I had today's data as well. So how do we make sure that if we're testing those who have variants that we're actually picking up these cases? So if you use antigen-based tests, they'll continue to work because most of the antigen-based tests are testing for the conserved N antigen of the virus where there's less mutations. When it comes to the sequencing and the genetic sequence testing, that's where we don't know what the efficacy is, and it could be definitely impacted by what sequences it's looking for and if that's where the mutation has targeted. So this is from the Johns Hopkins website, where they said that 85.4% of diagnostic tests have targets other than the spike gene. So they should be effective for these variants, and they would not produce a failed test. 7.3% have multiple targets in the SARS-CoV-2 genome in the spike genes, such as the ORF1ab and the N genes. And that was in that initial diagram that I showed you, where the majority of the genes were actually not for those structural proteins. And 90.1 rapid antigen tests with EUA can detect the nucleocapsid protein. So let's talk about how are we testing to see where the variants are. So you take a patient or a person who is infected, you collect a sample, and then what you're doing is you're targeting for a specific area in the RNA sequence. In this case, you're probably looking the region of the spike protein. You're then sequencing the area, and then you're comparing the sequence of that viral genome against known variants, and then you can have identification of a variant type. But at this point, we have a very patchy picture. As you can see here, that it is the percentage of cases that are being sequenced is very low. So perhaps the presence of variants is far ahead than what our understanding is of what the variants are in the area to be able to pick up new variants. So where does that lead us with vaccines and how efficacious they are against the COVID variants? If you're looking at the vaccination rate right now, this is from 3 days ago, this is from the New York Times, and what you can see here is the number of doses of the immunizations that are being administered per 100 people. And you can see that we still have a long way to go to ensure that vaccinations have equitable distribution in terms of the population. So if we look at the specific virus vaccines that were used to look at the question of the variants of concern, the first study that I'm going to talk about is the Novavax, which is against the B1.351 variant of concern. And this was a study that was done out of 16 sites in South Africa. And what you see here is the poster that was the summary data from the New England article. This included patients enrolled between 17th of August to 25th of November of 2020. It included in a 1-to-1 ratio those people who were HIV negative between 18 and 84 years of age, and those who were HIV positive between 18 to 64. They included 4,387 participants. And then what they did is that they received either the Novavax vaccine, 2 doses, 21 days apart, or they received placebo, and you can see how many people were included in each arm. And what they found with the overall efficacy of this vaccine was 49.4%. And the efficacy was higher, 60.1%, in those who were HIV negative. And then if you were looking specifically against the B1.351 variant, In the HIV negative participants, they had an efficacy of 51%. So this vaccine and this trial were seen to be efficacious against COVID-19 as well as to the variant. When they did sequence the 41 isolates, 92.7% of those actually had the variant of concern, B1.351. So what about the Pfizer Bioentec? And they looked at the data against two different variants, the B1.351 and the B1.1.7. This was a study that was done in Qatar. And I'm going to draw your attention to their table 1. And what you see was that the efficacy was 89.5%. You can see this here in this lighter row at 14 days after the second dose. And efficacy against the B1351 strain was 75%. And then the efficacy against severe outcomes by any of the variants was 97.4%. So here we're seeing data that there is efficacy of the Pfizer Bioentec vaccine against those two variants. What about Moderna? So Moderna actually released this press release on May 5th, and it was information regarding the B1.351 and P1. And what they're talking about is 3 different types of booster vaccine. One that's based on 1.351, a multi-strain version, and one against it, one involving its original one. And it said that the single booster dose of 50 micrograms of the 1273 or the 1273-351 had increased neutralizing titers against the virus and 2 variants of concern in previously vaccinated clinical trial participants, and those are the 2 variants of concern listed here. The booster dose of the 351, when a strain-matched candidate, achieved higher titers against the 351 than a booster dose of the regular 1273. The mRNA 351 and the 1273 booster doses were generally well tolerated, and they were looking at a multivalent vaccine booster candidate, the 1273 2.11, of which the data is ongoing. The study's ongoing and the data is expected. So we can't bring him back, and the show is going on. And I hope that I was able to give you a great summary of variants to at least start to face the surges that we continue to face in our attempts to end the pandemic and the morbidity and the mortality it has caused. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Monica. And I think it was a very knowledgeable presentation by you. Dr. Chong, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you invite everyone for question answers and followed with their respective country scenario?
Yes. Thank you, Monica. That was a brilliant presentation and a good up to date on all the variants. And in Singapore, for example, we're struggling a bit with the B1617 variant. And it's very interesting. We just had a webinar a couple of days ago, and we have this Changi Airport cluster. So it's quite fascinating that I can tell you that they managed to trace the first index case at Changi Airport. He contracted on May the 4th. The second tier case, that means when he transmitted to the second tier, they estimated was the second tier guy got it between May 3rd to May 7th. The third tier case was May 8 to 11. And the fourth tier case was May 10 to 12. So if you look at 4 to 12, there is 8 days. So in 8 days, it managed to transmit 4 generations. Yeah, so it's quite frightening to us here in Singapore. So just to let you know how infectious this is. So 4th to 12th, that is 8 days, and four tiers of generation, transmission. So thank you very much for that. It was really quite a brilliant update. And I also like to invite anyone else to talk about what's happening in their home countries. Perhaps we'll just start with Dr. Chowdhury.
Yeah, so thank you so much. Dr. Chong, actually paying tribute to our late president, Dr. K.K. Agarwal. Actually, I'm very happy that you have continued this session. So we'll be definitely benefited by these sessions. Actually, I hope this will continue. Thank you, Dr. Chong, Chair. And especially thank Dr. Monica Vasudev, who has taken a lot of trouble to present this very important aspects of variants and others. So also the efficacy of the vaccines throughout the world. Now, actually in Bangladesh, we are seeing a lot of this Indian variants. Actually, the genome sequencing done so far, actually it is very insignificant, we must say, because of the affordability and others actually. So, so far, this Indian variant is prevailing here, and the South African variant also is more. So we are now having this actually near about 1,400 to 1,600 infections per day, and the country is still under lockdown, but it is loose lockdown. Only the educational institutions, offices are closed, but the traffic and others, and it's almost it's on the roads, and only the inter-districts buses, the transports are closed. So actually, you can say the people are not using mask all through. Only you can see 50% probably they are using the mask. So I don't know how it will be controlled. Let us see how it is controlled. Vaccine, actually, we are around running short of vaccines. Actually, you're supposed to be supplied from the Serum Institute of India because of the situation prevailing there. So they have stopped exporting the vaccines. So we are not getting it from there, and even from the COVAX also we are not getting. Only a very little amount of coming in the first week of June from WHO COVAX. We are getting only 100,000 thereabout. So it's very insignificant in terms of our populations and others. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Chaudhary. Dr. Pillai, do you have something to update us?
Thank you. Let me first of all pay homage to Dr. K.K. Agarwal. And then the Indian situation, as you well know, that the second phase, we are struggling with the second phase. We had daily incidents of almost 4 lakhs or more per day, an equal number of increasing mortality. And now it seems to be coming down to 2 lakhs, that range. There is a significant reduction in the number of cases. And of course, initially, the health system was overwhelmed by sudden increase in the number of cases, but we are now sort of in the control of the situation, shortage of severe oxygen and the bed and all those things. We are very fast, in a very resilient way. We are overcoming the situation. Of course, the vaccine administration is the key for success. Lockdown in different states, in different severity do exist. There is spread of infection to the rural areas. Rural populations are also getting infected. But then the total number definitely is coming down. The vaccine definitely to cope up with the situation of this magnitude of population. The vaccines production, even if you buy from outside, is not sufficient. But we are slowly streamlining the vaccine process, and that is happening. And the 2 vaccines which are available in India, the Covishield, that is AstraZeneca, and our own Covaxin, both seems to be. There are certain reports that they are also effective against variants, but confirmatory evidence has not come. The variant definitely is a challenge for us because at least we know that it spread much more rapidly than the previous strain, and that itself is definitely a challenge. So these are the problems that we are facing, but in a very resilient way, in a systematic manner, with optimism, we are tackling the situation. Hopefully, the tide will slowly settle down, maybe within a month or so. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pillai. And yeah, it is indeed quite worrying because, as I just mentioned, the zero interval from our studies in Singapore have shown that instead of the usual 5 to 6 days, we're looking at 4 generations of spread in just 8 days. So quite frightening. I noticed a question from Dr.
Chong. Can I? Dr. Chong, this is Dr.
Dr. Sajjad, yes,
yeah,
please.
can I? Okay, thank you
Yes,
very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I was so disturbed that the last meeting, the KK Agarwal was there, and at this today meeting, he is not here. So anyhow, this is the life. But we always remember him, and I hope all of us will never forget him. In Pakistan, we have the third wave of coronavirus, but with a different picture. The picture is that we have sometime the one part of the country is the number of cases is increasing, the other part is decreasing. Then the decreasing area is the number of cases are increasing. Then suddenly this is fluctuating in some areas and then sometimes is going up. So still we are facing the third wave, and number of today by the government it is announced that the 4,000 more than 4,000 cases are recorded within 24 hours. I feel that the weather has no relation with this virus, because we have a very hot weather nowadays here in Pakistan, particularly in the Sindh area, Sindh province. Rather, I can say in all over the Pakistan, it's very hot and humid, but still the cases is going up. So I think it's not related to any weather. I don't know. I just asked Monica to confirm whether it is related to any weather or something. And secondly, I would like to know, Monica, can you tell me about the vaccines of Chinese, which is what called Sinopharm, Sinovac sort of vaccine? Is this effective for the different variant which you have explained? And you have presented a very fantastic information. I appreciate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sajjad. Monica?
Yeah, so what all I found with the Sinovac was that they had said that it was efficacious against the Brazilian variant, one variant, but I didn't find any studies that were found in the journal that, or at least my review, that showed what their efficacy was against other variants. There are
What
also
about
against the UK, the South African variants as well.
What about the Sinopharm?
So Sinopharm, I knew more about Sinovac than Sinopharm. Let me see if there's anything that I can tell you.
To let you know that in Singapore, we have received 200,000 doses of Sinovac about 3-4 months ago. We have not used it because our regulator here has asked for quality, safety, and efficacy data from Sinovac, and we haven't got it yet. So we have not used Sinovac in Singapore yet, although we have 200,000 doses sitting somewhere.
Okay, but in Mr. Chairman, but we in Pakistan, we have been vaccinated by Sinopharm, Sinovac, and AstraZeneca.
Yes.
And is some privately Sputnik, the Russian vaccine.
I can go back and just mention the Sinopharm says that there is a report saying that it is efficacious against the South African variant. But again, these are just like media reports as opposed to kind of showing data. So I think when you have rapidly evolving variants, that I think whatever data we have is what was done at a time that was different than it is today. And maybe the thought is that vaccination globally and having anyone and everyone vaccinated with available vaccines is more important than waiting for the vaccine that is working for the moment at that time.
Yes.
Hello.
Dr. Sajjad, was that useful? Was that a useful reply from Monica?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Dr.
D'Souza?
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Dr. Chang. Monica, thank you very much for that presentation. I wanted to just ask you, this thing has arisen now, antibody-dependent enhancement, which now there's some claims from the Nobel laureate Montega, isn't it, who the virologist, who claims that there is a condition called antibody-dependent enhancement, which from the vaccines is causing some of the variants. What's your thoughts about this concept of antibody-dependent enhancement that is affecting the vaccine and indirectly causing the variants?
So what I know about variants is that if you have an immunosuppressed host, you have no immunity against the virus, that virus will continuously replicate and you'll get more variants. Everything is a delicate balance and a dance between host and the actual pathogen. So when you have an antibody-dependent process in immunology, what's happening is that you develop an antibody and the antibody acts as a tag. It binds onto the virus. Now that tag can do two things. It can bind onto the Fc portion of a receptor. The antibody binds onto that with the virus particle and it gets engulfed into the phagocyte. So sometimes that's being used to break up the virus, then cause antigen presentation, and you get a better immune response. Well, what if the engulfing of the viral particles actually causes increased reproduction and viral, a viral infection? So here you have one immunological response, which is antibody production binding to the virus, causing two completely different responses. Okay, now we mix in the fact that you have a fever, you think you're infected, and you start taking prednisone. You start taking systemic steroids. How did the modulation of your immune system by taking immunosuppressant affect also your infection as well, whether or not you have the vaccine? I don't know the answer to this because this antibody-dependent phenomenon was described with other viruses first. It was not described by SARS-CoV-2. And I don't even think that we have the ability to test all of this now because I think that the hosts are being modulated because people are starting therapy as soon as they find out that they are infected. We don't have enough time to figure it out. And this virus is mutating a lot. I think that every immunological process is possible with this virus. I think everything that we've seen with every other virus is possible with this virus because this virus is so pathogenic. But I don't know, I don't think this is a major phenomenon though.
Okay, so antibody-dependent enhancement, don't think it's a major issue with this virus and with the vaccination, the immunization program. Is that right? Would you say that?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Monica, thank you, Dr. D'Souza. Monica, I recall that this ADE occurs quite a bit with dengue strains and the vaccine.
Yes, yes, but I haven't heard much about this with the SARS-CoV-2, but it is possible. But I think that this virus is mutating so fast that it's hard to know whether or not that this phenomenon is occurring right now.
Okay. Hey, I noticed that Ravi, you would like to speak about what's happening in Malaysia?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Well, Malaysia now, the cases are just increasing. As of yesterday, we had more than 6,000 cases over 24 hours. The concern is we have had 50 deaths. We are now in a lockdown. We call it the movement control order. But they have allowed businesses to operate whereby, like say, there is no dine-in, but you can have a takeaway. Officers are supposed to work with only 30% and the rest should be working from home. But what has happened is as of May 17, there have been 5 cases of the B1.617 variant. Now that is causing a lot of concern now. And we do not know what's going to happen. And what's happening now is, I think for those coming from India, the government is planning on a 21-day quarantine. They had 10 days all this while. Now they've made it 14 days standard for all those coming into the country. However, for those coming from India, it is 21 days. So it's a big concern here. People are worried. The cases are just rising every day, you know. So people are very concerned, but unfortunately, life seems to be going on as normal, like our Dr. Chowdhury said in Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. Monica, just want to have a question. I think Dr. Kumar has asked a question about mixing and matching different vaccines. Can you also comment about lengthening the vaccine period? Because in Singapore, we've now decided to open up the interval from 3 weeks and 4 weeks for Moderna and Pfizer to 6 to 8 weeks.
So there are data, and I don't have the actual references, but so this has been done in England. It's also being done in Canada, where there's 16 weeks between doses. And they're showing that there are increase in antibody levels if you increase the interval between doses. So I don't think that this is going to be a concern. I think I had mentioned this on an earlier program too, that as part of, I wear a hat as an allergist, and I evaluate people who have had reactions after the first dose of the vaccine, and we're trying to risk stratify the second dose, trying to understand if it was a true allergic reaction or another phenomenon. And so what I do is I actually order antibodies to the spike protein for patients who've been immunized with concern about the second dose exposure. And many of them have developed robust IgG levels to the spike protein. So we even know that a single dose will provide you some efficacy. I feel that the data showing the delay in the second dose, I think that was also coming from Israel as well, that there is efficacy. Also, there was another question that was asked about mixing and matching vaccines, especially for booster doses. We don't have official recommendations yet. However, my suspicion is that when the boosters become available, I do feel that it'll be very difficult to be able to implement that if you've been on one vaccine that you should get the booster of the same vaccine because of the distribution issues. And I feel my prediction is that we will be getting a booster of whatever vaccine is available. And the booster will be modified in terms of its, like especially for the mRNA vaccines, to include the variants that are of the highest concern at that time.
Dr. Monica, can I have a question? Just mixing, actually, we are really concerned, actually, you know, in Bangladesh, because they predicted that it will be continuous supply, but there is an interruption of supply, I just mentioned before, supply from India. So our near about 1.5 billion people are vaccinated once only, and they are not getting the second. So we are very much concerned about it. And I have seen in a report from Spain, they have conducted a trial and mixing the vaccine, and they have said that yes, immunogenicity in terms of immunogenicity also is better. But yes. You know, in the UK and France, they have not measured the immunogenicity, but they have measured they have seen there is a temporary symptoms or adverse reactions are more in case of mixing. So I'm not sure what is the latest, anything else you know about these things?
I think you're referring to the Nature release that came out on May 19th. And what they said was that vaccinating people with both the Oxford AstraZeneca and the Pfizer Bioentec vaccines have a potent immune response. And this was the one that was done in Spain. So they published preliminary results, 600 people, and they showed the benefits of combining these two vaccines. And then the UK trial said that they reported the safety data, and that was the one that you were mentioning. So if there were issues with the AstraZeneca vaccine and people were concerned about the side effects, it appears that using the Pfizer vaccine is a good alternative in that case. In terms of the other side effects, though, I'm not sure. I don't see any data on that right now, but this is very promising because, again, even in the case of not even the second dose, but when the booster dose becomes a concern, we will not be restricted by the initial vaccine that you got.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Russell, if you're trying to speak, I think you're on mute. I don't know if he's...
Okay, perhaps I'll get Marie to let us know what's happening in Japan.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you very much, especially for Sabra organizing this meeting in a very tough condition. And Dr. Yokokura, former president of JMA, is sending deepest his condolences. And what is happening in Japan is we are experiencing the fourth wave, but even though that the International Olympic Committee announced that no matter how the condition, the COVID-19, they will hold the Olympics in Japan. So it's kind of a bad news for us. And I read the interesting articles, two articles. One is from UK, that's stating that over 80 years old who had a vaccination 12 weeks apart, they get titer of neutralizing antibody for 3.5 times more. I'm going to share this paper with you lately. And also the other article is released from Japanese medical school. The number is 100, so the sample is very small, but they tested the 8 kind of variants of neutralizing antibody. They found out almost over 90% of people showing that the neutralizing antibody to the variants, including South African one, and the England and the Brazil and the Indian one. The vaccine was all were from Pfizer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marie. Please, we look forward to the papers. Please post them for us. Thank you. Deborah, do you have something to say to us from Brazil?
Hello. Good day for all. I'm very happy to see all you in this meeting, in this situation. We missed Dr. KK, and it's very important to continue his work. Congratulations, Dr. Monica. You did an excellent resume of the disease. It's very important for us. Here in Brazil, we have about 20 people that had 20% of the population that had at least the first dose of the vaccine. We are using here 3 kinds of vaccine, CoronaVac from China. It's made here, but it's the IFA is from China. Pfizer vaccine and the AstraZeneca vaccine. So the health minister is a medicine doctor, is an excellent doctor. He started to work 1 month ago. And he thinks that at the end of the year, we have most of the population vaccinated with the 2 doses. I hope so, because here the scientist says that we are starting the 3rd wave. I'm very worried in this, with this situation. But I hope that we have the pandemic of COVID-19 controlled in all the world, because we need to live safe and well. I'm very worried.
Dr.
Thank you,
Deborah,
Thank you
Deborah.
very much
Dr.
for the
Deborah,
opportunity.
Deborah, is it the P1 variant is more prevalent in Brazil still, or some other variant also has emerged there? So still you are having
Yes.
high infections. Still it is P1.
Yes, here we have 2 cases of the Indian variant yet confirmed. And we think that it will be worse than the other wave.
Mhm.
Can you understand me?
Yeah, sure. But you know, we have also in Bangladesh, but it's not spreading much actually. But why don't you cannot contain that with Indian variant? Also,
Thank you. I saw Dr. Hussein has just joined us. Dr. Hussein from South Africa, would you like to say some words to us?
Good morning, Dr. Chong, and thank you, Monica, for very, very excellent presentation. We are in South Africa. South African Medical Association had a meeting, and we missed Dr. Agrawal badly. And we have already started the 3rd wave in South Africa, especially in Johannesburg and Eastern Cape. Every day, more than 3,500 to 3,800 new cases we have seen since yesterday. The 3rd wave is mostly affecting the comorbidity people, mostly above 40, 50, and their needing oxygen requirement is very early, within few days. At the moment, some province, the hospitals are already getting full, and Pfizer vaccine is rolled out in South Africa for ordinary population, but it's running very slow. So far, 150,000 last for this whole week giving. I got a question with Monica. Some people are going from other country coming, got the AstraZeneca. Now they're enrolling for Pfizer. Is it a good option, or they must go for AstraZeneca, or they must stay with the Pfizer? The other thing, Shorab, we got a letter from Indian Medical Association that they need some help. We don't know what type of help they required from South Africa. If we need some more clarity, so we can start supporting.
You can forward me that letter. I can coordinate and I will let you know.
Thank you, Shorab. We'll do that. Thank you.
Monica?
Yes, so the question was regarding AstraZeneca followed by Pfizer. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah, so there was actually, I mean, this is all, there were reports now. There was something that was reported on May 18th, and there was that Spanish study, again, that showed that the AstraZeneca vaccine followed by Pfizer is safe and efficacious. So there's 2 issues. One is like, are people trying to get a different vaccine on purpose, or are they getting the vaccine because that is only the one that's available? In this scenario where a second dose is required and there's nothing else available, it makes sense that these people should get that second dose of whatever is available. However, if people are trying to find and change the dosing based on their desire, I think it's always better to get the second dose of the same vaccine if it's available and you can get it. I think that we should stick to the original studies, and when new studies become available, then we should follow what the outcomes are. The problem is that if you start mixing and matching vaccines and you start having increase in side effects, or you have an unintended outcome, it's very difficult to troubleshoot because we have nothing to fall back on. In the scenario where you have a high level, you have a surge, you're using whatever vaccines available, you don't have the availability of a vaccine that you got the first dose of, in that scenario, it makes sense that you should be mixing and matching.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you, Monica. Hey, I noticed that Tony Baton is here. Tony, would you like to tell us a little bit about what's happening in Australia? Tony?
Okay. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hi, Tony.
Tony, your voice is very low if you're speaking.
I don't think his audio is connected. It's
Oh,
connected
okay.
now.
All right. Maybe he's just listening.
No, his audio is connected. He was trying to speak right now. I could hear him
Oh,
a
okay.
little bit. Mr. Tony, are you there?
Yes, send a message to him.
We have Dr. Salma also joining in from Pakistan. We can invite her till that time.
Yes,
Well,
please. Yes.
Dr. Chung, I can tell you, in fact, I was
Yes.
with Mukesh Agrawal yesterday. The
Yes.
program in Australia, which Mukesh is involved with, we are into a vaccine. The main issue is vaccination and immunization, where there is some immunization hesitancy, complacency. All this is happening, and so the government and others are working, including the AMA, are working with trying to bring increase communication with our community. The issue is, again, there was some confusion with some people expecting to get the Pfizer later this year, and so as it stands, AstraZeneca for 50 and above, it's fully available apparently, and below 50 it's the Pfizer. So, you know, and we've had a few 2 days ago we had another couple of clots, okay, and we have 2 or 3 deaths, I think. So it works out to 28 or so. So there's a little bit of concern about that. And the other thing is that they're concerned because the public don't see an important need for it at the moment because there is no virus, and they're talking about opening up next year. So there's a lot of discussion on how to increase the urgency of this needing to get immunized. So that's the program. The government, the AMA, and all are working towards increasing communication, but particularly also to the multicultural areas, bringing in new people who can talk, communicate in different languages and so forth. So that's where we are in Australia. Still fairly good in terms of virus. I don't think there's any cases, community cases at the moment anywhere other than what's in the quarantine. So that's where we are in Australia.
Thank you, Dr. D'Souza. Yes, I know Australia and to a certain extent, New Zealand are trying to pursue a zero tolerance for COVID.
Yeah, well, elimination, they call it elimination.
And that's why actually there is hesitancy of vaccination because of this
because
only.
There's no
Yeah.
And one of the things is looking at Taiwan, they had a fair amount of complaints there. They had only 1% or so. So similarly here, we've had the uptake has been rather checkered. So they're trying to get more people to start. I think their surveys are showing roughly around for 30 to 40% don't have a intention to take the vaccine at the moment. So that's a bit of a concern. All the surveys are showing that roughly 30 to 40% are not ready to take or not willing or have no intention or something like that. So 60% will, and we have to increase that. So that's the challenge that Australia is facing at the moment. Yeah. And of course, the other one is increasing the number of quarantine places. We have a large number of Australians waiting to come back for a long time. I think about 40,000, and out of which I think about 9 to 10,000 from India. So they're all waiting, and their families are separated. There's a lot of those are the issues that are coming up more here, and how to bring them back. They're opening a new set of quarantine in Northern Territory, a new beds, a new facility, a few more facilities, purpose-built facilities for quarantine, not hotels. They're trying to do that to bring back Australians who are stranded in different parts of the world.
Yes.
Yeah,
actually, in
you.
Singapore, we have been noting the Australian policy of zero tolerance. And in Singapore, because we were very successful initially, community cases were only about 2,000. Our dormitory outbreak was muchly confined, didn't affect the community because it was walled off. So, and now we're having an outbreak. And of course, we have a mini lockdown as what you guys have practiced in Melbourne and Sydney. But increasingly, the conversation here in Singapore is about how we're going to live with the virus versus zero tolerance, because we're a very small city state and we eventually need to open up, and we are going to expect when you open the windows, the flies are going to come in. So there's a lot of talk about, zero tolerance policy versus living with the virus. So to that end, we are trying to roll out the vaccine ASAP to as many as possible. And that's why we are opening up the interval to 6 to 8 weeks to try to cover more persons as opposed to getting more people with 2 doses. So but there's a lot of discussion going on in Singapore about the stance of the society. Yeah.
Dr. Chong, Dr. Chong, what you're saying is right. From Australia's point, they've come out at the budget where they're only going to open middle of next year. Now that's got businesses and others making questions, but fortunately or unfortunately, this community survey has shown more than 60% of the population in Australia want it to be closed. They don't want it to be opened, and they want to continue in this, whether it's going to happen or not. So the government is, there's an election coming and so forth. So I don't, they are going to be supporting what the public, the majority want. And that is again, keeping it clocked and having what we call, what do they call it? Elimination.
Yes.
I want to add.
Dr. Chaudhary.
I want to add before Dr. Chaudhary, I want to add Dr. Tony's comments, which I've received on my email, because he has a poor connection. He's out of the office. He agrees with Dr. D'Souza's comments. There are no community cases. There are hesitancy, complicancy, and vaccine rollout is poor in that area. And then we have further comments saying that politics is trumping science. Battle is between the government zero tolerance strategy versus open up and back to normal life with the virus. Intentions to keep borders closed for much longer. Many state elections and the federal election is playing a lot of populism policy. So these are the comments from Dr. Tony, and we are happy to receive the comments irrespective. He's not able to put his words on the mic right now. Over to you again.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
Totally
Chong. Actually,
agree.
I have a question. Actually, it's very pertinent question. Actually, this Bangladesh is going to manufacture these vaccines from China, this Sinopharm, and they have done the contract with also the Russian Sputnik. But do you have any idea about these manufacturers, Pfizer, Moderna, or AstraZeneca? Why they are not opening up when there is a huge scarcity in the world, and we have to do the vaccination? That is the thing. Mass vaccination must be done throughout the world. So do you have any idea about this, that why when these manufacturers will open up with others and they will allow the other countries to manufacture this type of vaccines?
Dr. Chaudhary, I will tell you.
Anybody is having the idea about this?
I think, Dr. Chaudhary, this is a very difficult question to answer, but I will tell you that BioNTech and Pfizer are setting up a plant in Singapore.
Okay. No, we have the facility here. You know, we have the facility here. Huh? We have the facility here. So why they are not allowing this type of countries to produce?
I can tell
This
you.
question is not
something.
Yeah.
I can tell you something very interesting. Why we think BioNTech and
here
Pfizer is setting
one
up a
problem
plant here.
is that
Yes.
of intellectual property right, and if that
Yes.
is settled, then maybe they'll be willing to set new manufacturing areas in other countries.
No, I know this AstraZeneca has got 15 in the plant in 15 countries, and they have near about 30 contractors also, so that they are manufacturing there also. But they can allow, they can sell their this intellectual property. They can sell.
Dr. Chaudhary, I may have an
Yes.
answer for you.
Yes.
There are 3 places in the world with the largest concentration of pharmaceutical plants. That's Singapore, Ireland,
Yeah.
and Puerto Rico. And let me
Okay.
tell you, Pfizer in Singapore, with all this huge plants selling, producing Viagra and all that, pays less taxes than me.
Mhm.
It's all about tax holidays.
Mhm.
So if you are willing to allow Pfizer not to pay any taxes, they'll put a plant there.
These are
No,
known
but-
as tax havens business deals.
Yes.
Already,
Unfortunately,
you know,
I think
already,
there's probably
Dr. Chong, already, the 9 billionaires have emerged from this vaccination camp, 9 billionaires has emerged.
yeah,
So
but they don't want to pay any tax on it.
I think Dr. Chong has gone in different lines to disclose the business secrets, I would say. Okay.
I think,
Okay, thank you.
honestly, I think there's a reason. Okay, I think
Yeah.
we've come to the end of our session. It's we've overrun by 10 minutes.
And
So
yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you all for joining us. And today is a very difficult day for Monica, for Sarab, and for all of us here. We've all missed President so terribly. It's such a devastating blow to all of us. But I think President up there, he's watching over us somewhere in the universe, and I think President wants us to carry on business as usual, and to make sure that his legacy is kept intact. And I think we have to carry on and shoulder on and keep this going for as long as this pandemic is going on.
Dr. Chong, can
Yes.
we arrange a separate condolence meeting? Actually, we attended that, which was arranged by Saurabh and others and colleagues actually.
Sure.
With us. Can we arrange a separate condolence meeting for Dr. K.K. Agarwal, having all the representations from our CMAAO countries officially? Can you arrange that?
Yes. I'll do that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'll look into
Thank
that. I'll
Yes,
talk to
yes.
Sarab, and we'll do a little
Yes.
CMAAO
Sorry.
get together.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
So without much ado, thank you all for joining us. As usual, we all miss President terribly, and we miss his vision, his drive, his energy, his I've said it all the previous day. What a man. Throughout these 60 over sessions with Zoom with him, I've really come to understand the man better, and I really appreciate what he did for all of us. I mean, that boundless energy, that drive, that vision, that ability to move himself from not just a scientific method, but to a spiritual realm. Amazing. What can I say? So again, thank you all for joining us. And today was a very good session, as what President would have wanted. A very good, robust discussion. And we look forward to seeing you all next week again at the same time. Thank you all again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chong. And I just want to add I just want to
Thank
add,
you
we have
all.
seen
Thank you very
16
much.
countries. We have seen 16 countries coming for
thank
this
you.
session, which was probably one of the highest today. And thank you. We are blessed with having such a beautiful CMAAO international family. The legacy is continued, and the final comment saying the show must go on is, with the help of you guys, cannot happen. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. And we look forward for many more speakers and many more topics coming in. We want to continue this sessions, not for this year, but forever, and make this session as a complete international platform to share knowledge, not only for COVID, but many more pandemics coming in, which I don't want. I'm sorry to say that, but yes, I see everybody shaking their heads. So I know what, but again, it's a good platform to share knowledge to for everyone on on different topics and share their knowledge, which was a dream for Dr. KK when he took over CMAAO. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Dr. Deborah wants to speak something, or okay, fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, can I add here that we have 40th the international panel discussion tomorrow, and there will be a session with remembering and recognizing Dr. KK Agrawal, who was going to be on the June 6th. He was going to be part of that program. So we are having tomorrow, and the topic is difficult conversations, healthcare provider and patients in COVID-19. So we're going to have panels from Europe, North America, South America, and a couple of presentations, but we will be having a short presentation and remembrance of Dr. KK Agrawal tomorrow at this the webinar number 40 tomorrow. Thank you. You're all welcome. I put it on the what do you call it, WhatsApp group. So please join in if you have